and thanks for joining us on the news on NTA International. I am Elizabeth Omori. Now let's take a look at the headlines. President Tinubu transmits 2024 Appropriation Act Amendment Bill to Senate. King Charles III outlines Labour's programs for government with promises of economic stability and tougher action on irregular migration. Plus correspondent examines culture of assassination attempts on American leaders. Now we begin with the student loan. The much expected student loan has effectively taken off as President Bola Tinubu launches the Nigeria Education Loan Fund (NEL-Fund) portal. At the launching, President Tinubu emphasized that his administration will continue to invest in education as catalyst for general socio-economic development. State House correspondent Musbao Danwahab will bring us details subsequently. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has transmitted the 2024 Appropriation Act Amendment Bill to Senate. Senate is granting the bill consideration as it captures funding for the national minimum wage and key infrastructure renewed hope projects omitted in the 2024 budget. The amendment is to make provisions of additional funds for recurrent and capital expenditure worth trillions of naira. Meanwhile, Senator Mohammed Tahir Mangono has been appointed the majority whip of the Senate following the removal of Mohammed Ali Ndume. The removal of Ndume was sequel to a communication to the Senate from the national leadership of the APC, in which it expressed displeasure over claims against the federal government by Senator Ndume during a recent interview on a television station.
His uncouth and rabid outbursts against the governments before the international community and before the global community is not only harmful to the government's image alone, but also undermines the party's unity and cohesion.
Now to mining. The federal government has instructed the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development to only issue mining licenses if they are tied to local value addition. Vice President Kashim Shettima gave the directive at the opening of the African Natural Resources and Energy Investment Summit in Abuja. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila reports.
And for Africa to fully realize its full potential and meet global climate targets, we must put collaboration at the forefront of our collective national transition plans. It is indeed inspiring to see so many international dignitaries who have answered our call to gather here today in Abuja to engage in important discussions.
This summit, featuring Africa's natural resources accounting officers, aims to contribute to the economic growth of the continent through sustainable energy transition and tackling climate change.
This government is fully committed to creating an enabling business environment to attract investment that encourages value addition on solid minerals before they are exported. We recognize the losses incurred from exporting crude mineral commodities and understand that it is the time to change this narrative. By doing so, we aim to ensure that our teeming youth are actively engaged in economic activities, acquiring skills, and contributing to the nation's foreign exchange earnings.
The summit explores how Africa's resources can boost economic prosperity, empower marginalized communities, and break the cycle of debt, thereby funding transition plans and ushering in a greener Africa.
We are now saying we must all have one policy so that we can harness our value from the minerals. Of course, infrastructure development is very critical, and we really thank the governments. They've done their best. Unfortunately, minerals never happen in cities. They are found in rural areas. They need roads, they need electricity. So these are some of the enablers that we want to address here, and the biggest of them is capacity building. We need to achieve capacity to do that.
The area of illegal mining in Nasarawa State have been reduced to a minimum. We are already profiling the artisanal miners, indigenous miners, provided, empower them with resources and implement. We are doing that in conjunction with the Solid Mineral Development Fund.
The two-day summit also avails the opportunity for African leaders to establish a new ecosystem to foster participation in the mining sector, finance the transition and effective utilization of natural resources revenues, and maximize opportunities in the agricultural sector in Africa's sustainable development. From the State House, Abraham Jibrila, NTA News.
Now to the foreign scene. Zimbabwean president calls for reconciliation as he launches an inquiry into the Gukurangundi killings in the Matabeland region.
About 20,000 civilians were killed during the early 1980s when former President Robert Mugabe deployed the military to quell disturbances in the Matabeleland and Midlands provinces. 4 decades later, his successor, President Emmerson Mnangagwa, has launched an inquiry into the killings to address grievances and diffuse tensions that have long been associated with the period. Traditional chiefs will lead the process, where affected communities will be invited to make submissions at village level.
It is a good thing that President Mnangagwa is trying to bring finality to this matter. But of course, there are questions on the modalities and the structure of how this process is being managed. It would have been good if the Zimbabwean government had actually come up with a commission that is independent, a commission in which the government has no controlling hand. Also, the parameters of what the government needs to achieve needed to be more clear. Because right now we just know that there's an inquiry, but will this lead to compensation for those who had their relatives killed? Would it lead to compensation for those who lost their property? Will it lead even to persecution should someone have been found to being a perpetrator?
The government has said it will be guided by feedback from the outreach to decide the next course of action.
President Mnangagwa called for communities to seek reconciliation as opposed to retribution, and to bury the ghosts of the past and move forward.
Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine have released a total of 190 captured soldiers in the latest prisoner exchange between the two countries. Thousands of prisoners of war have been freed in more than 50 individual exchanges throughout the war. This is an area that the two sides have been able to strike agreements since Russia invaded in February 2022. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russia's Defense Ministry on both sides said that 95 of their soldiers have been freed. Russia's Defense Ministry on Telegram said the exchange was mediated by the United Arab Emirates, and as a result of a negotiation process, 95 Russian servicemen have been returned. In June, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that 1,348 Russian soldiers were being held in Ukrainian captivity, and that Russia had detained 6,465 Ukrainian prisoners of war. Still on the foreign scene, King Charles III has outlined Labour's first programme for government in 15 years, with promises of economic stability and tougher actions on irregular migration to improve relations with Europe, soured by Brexit. Frama Pani has details.
Wearing the diamond-studded imperial state crown, his admiral on the fleet uniform and the crimson robe of state, Charles delivered Labour's proposals from a golden throne in the House of Lords' upper chamber after a carriage procession from Buckingham Palace. The speech included more than 35 bills, including measures to enforce public spending rules and an independent assessment of future budgets to prevent a repeat of former Prime Minister Liz Truss's disastrous 2022 mini-budget that tanked the economy. The legislation revealed several announcements already made, such as the launching of a wealth fund to draw investment into the UK to spur growth, and of a publicly owned body taxed with boosting clean energy by 2030. The King's speech included a bill to strengthen workers' rights and plans to reform the unelected House of Lords by scrapping the right of those with hereditary titles to sit there.
My government will ensure a strong defence based on the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation's common values of individual liberty, democracy, human rights and the rule of law. Its commitment to NATO will remain unshakable. It will maintain a strong armed forces, including the nuclear deterrent. To ensure that the United Kingdom's defence capabilities are matched to the changing nature of global strategic threats, my government will conduct a strategic defence review.
Labour also pledged to repeal a controversial act that granted conditional immunity to perpetrators of crimes in Northern Ireland during the Troubles era of sectarian violence. The legislative agenda made no mention of lowering the voting age to 16 or ending a controversial two-child limit for welfare payments wanted by many Labour members of Parliament. The day's ceremonial started when royal bodyguards ritually searched the basement of the palace in Westminster for explosives, a legacy of the failed attempt by Catholics to blow up Parliament in 1605. The king then travelled from Buckingham Palace, escorted by mounted cavalry en route to the Houses of Parliament. Frama Panyi, NTA News.
And Dutch Prime Minister has vowed to bring to justice those behind the downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17. He made the vow just as relatives of those killed in the ill-fated flight gathered to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the disaster. Frama Panyi once again brings us details.
Russia has refused to extradite 3 men convicted by a Dutch court over their role in shooting down the plane. Last year, international investigators suspended their work, saying there was not enough evidence to prosecute more suspects. Schoof told hundreds of mourners and government dignitaries, and I quote, "We remain united in our fight for justice. That's what's driving us." End of quote. He was speaking at a ceremony in the Memorial Park near Schiphol Airport. It was from there that the doomed flight took off on a bright summer's day on July 17, 2014. Hours later, the Boeing 777 jet was shot down by a Russian-made box surface-to-air missile over eastern Ukraine as it passed on a flight line towards Kuala Lumpur. All 298 people on board were killed. A Dutch court in November 2022 sentenced 3 men in absentia to life imprisonment for their roles in bringing down the plane over separatist-held pro-Russian territory. It happened during the early stages of the conflict, during which Russia seized the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine. Among mourners was Evert van Zijveld, who lost his daughter Frederike, 19, and his son Robert John, 18, and his parents-in-law. Van Zijveld said he did not think those responsible would serve the sentences. The victims came from at least 10 countries, with 196 of them Dutch, 43 Malaysian, and 38 Australian. Relatives read out their names at the ceremony. Schiphol Airport shut down a nearby runway as a mark of respect, and elsewhere in the Netherlands, flags were flying at half-mast. Frama Panyi, NTA News.
Now let's delve into a chilling aspect of American history, the culture of assassination attempts on its leaders, both past and present. From Abraham Lincoln to John F. Kennedy, the specter of political violence has cast a long shadow over the nation's highest office. Recently, the spotlight turned once again to this dark chapter, as former President Donald Trump finds himself at the center of a conspiracy theory linking him to a startling assassination attempt. Correspondent Justin Bentley brings us the latest on this unfolding story and examines its historical context.
Throughout American history, the presidency has been a target for those seeking to alter the course of the nation through violence. The echoes of past tragedies, such as the assassinations of Abraham Lincoln.
The United States is second to none.
President Kennedy has been assassinated. It's official now. The president is dead.
John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. continue to resonate in the collective memory of the American people.
Those people have been treated so badly.
Fast forward to today, where the latest incident has reignited fears and conspiracy theories surrounding the safety of American leaders. Former President Donald Trump, a polarizing figure who remains a lightning rod for controversy, recently faced a harrowing moment during a public appearance in Dallas, Texas.
That was a big one. Take a look at what happened.
A disturbance erupted as a lone gunman breached security, prompting a swift response from law enforcement. Fortunately, the assailant was apprehended before any harm could be done. However, what followed was a flurry of speculation and conjecture in the media and online forums. Unsubstantiated claims linking the attempted attack to a broader conspiracy have quickly gained traction. Some allege that the incident was orchestrated, while others point to a supposed network of operatives with ulterior motives.
You'd expect conspiracy theories to fly regarding a person like Donald Trump. You know, is a controversial person, an unusual politician, somebody who is somewhat redefining the American political process in the way we understand it. You know, he's been involved in one controversy or the other. From before he became president, during his presidency, and even more so after his presidency, you know, and of course he hasn't been let down by those controversies. He's still powered through, seeking to return to the White House, you know. So it's a matter of many parts, you know. Against that background, you expect that there'll be so much, many theories around the incident. Some people believe in it and some people not believe in it. We're having misinformation, disinformation.
This latest episode underscores a troubling reality: how the discourse around American leadership has become intertwined with suspicion and mistrust. While investigations into the motive behind the attempt are ongoing, the incident has already left a lasting impression on the nation's psyche.
But what is also very important for the system to do is to unravel the motive behind the development, behind the attempt by the assassin, so that this kind of development can be prevented in the future. And of course, you know, if not completely prevented, because you cannot know the minds of men. You know, men can be driven by different, you know, objectives. Unfortunately, some of them evil. But at the same time, you can as well take measures, you know, to mitigate them.
As the nation grapples with its complex history and uncertain future, questions persist about the resilience of its democratic institutions and the safety of those who occupy its highest offices. For now, the focus remains on understanding the motivations behind this latest incident and ensuring that history does not repeat itself. Justin Bemun, NTA News.
Thank you so much, Justin, for that report. Time to take a breather. The news continues shortly. Thanks for staying with us. Now to the judiciary. The Federal High Court Abuja has ordered that 2 legal practitioners representing former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello be investigated for professional misconduct. The order followed the failure of Defense Counsel Adeola Adedipe SAN and Abdulwahab Mohammed SAN to fulfill their promises to produce the defendant in court for trial. Yahaya Bello is facing trial for alleged embezzlement of 80 billion naira while serving as governor of Kogi State from 2015. The court has also overruled Yahaya Bello's motion for stay of the proceedings, pending when a notice of appeal he filed before the Court of Appeal would be heard and determined. Justice Mwite said the refusal is in line with the Administration of Justice Criminal Justice Act 2015, which seeks to prevent undue delay of criminal trials. The court's earlier order that Yahaya Bello be arrested to face trial still subsists. Meanwhile, the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has ordered the reinstatement of former Edo State Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu to his former position several months after he was impeached on 8th of April 2024 by the Edo State House of Assembly. Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court Abuja held that since Shaibu's impeachment did not follow due process or fair hearing, the Inspector General of Police is to restore his security details to enable him resume his duties as Deputy Governor. And the People's Democratic Party is hailing the judgment of the Federal High Court Abuja, which affirmed the nomination of its candidate, Dr. Aswe Ihudalo, in the September 21, 2024 governorship election in Edo State. The party, in a statement issued in Abuja by its National Publicity Secretary, described the judgment that upheld the PDP Edo State governorship primary election held on February 22, 2024 at the Samuel Igbomodia Stadium in Benin City as a victory for democracy, rule of law, and a well-founded affirmation of the propriety and credibility of the primary election and PDP's internal democracy. It notes that the judgment further validates the fact that all the aspirants the governorship primary election were accorded level playing ground in the conduct of the Edo State PDP congresses and governorship primary election that produced Dr. Aswe Ihudalo as candidates. Now, the Joint Committee of the National Assembly in the review of the 1999 Constitution is engaging the judiciary on specific issues bordering on improving citizens' access to justice while enhancing public trust. At a sectorial meeting in Lagos, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi SN, said as a follow-up to financial autonomy for local governments, the committee should equally be interested in the conduct of elections at the grassroots by the various states' independent electoral bodies. Michael Olale brings us details.
As preludes to the review of the 1999 Constitution, this sectorial engagement with the judiciary is anchored around the fact that the third arm of government is the last hope of the common man, and enhancing its efficiency in the dispensation of justice will strengthen democratic governance.
The end of this engagement, the input of the judiciary will be well harvested, and a better constitution that will pursue the justice for everyone in Nigeria will be drafted.
The Minister of Justice wants the committee to leap above the ritual practice of review to more impactful issues that will foster national prosperity. It called for better insight into electoral matters as they affect the local governments.
Aside the notorious fact that the ruling party usually sweeps all the available chairmanships and councillorship seats, there have been unfortunate instances where opposition candidates who manage, and I say straight, to emerge winners are not sworn into office. There is also the need to introduce measures to ensure uniformity and security of tenure for local government officials across the country.
The committee agreed to come up with inclusive constitution that will truly reflect the values and aspirations of the country.
There is a need for us to think out of the box with a view to, through constitutional amendment frameworks, bring an amendment by way of creating special seats for women.
We will continue in the process, but we've had challenges. The greatest challenge that we have faced in the amendment of the Constitution has always been from the state houses of assembly.
It is believed that the inclusion of Conference of State Assembly Speakers will assist the committee to come up with acceptable and effective resolutions. In Lagos, Michael Olale, NT News.
In other development, the Federal Government Ministry of Environment has received a report on Nigeria's energy transition strategy, recommending solar energy as a veritable energy mix, which when it seeks to improve access of its citizens to clean power source. The report, Development Agenda, presents conducted by the Vice-Chancellor, Federal University of Petroleum Resources, was received by the Minister of State for Environment, Isiaq Salako, in Abuja. The report, among other things, emphasized how Nigeria can cautiously work through its energy transition plan and the need to have a proper understanding of the underpinning forces of energy transition in West Africa and Nigeria in particular. It also pointed out that lack of adequate investment in clean energy sources is constituting a challenge for timely transition despite the vast natural potential that abound.
Energy transition plan with respect to the effect on the environment, and we're very active with it. Now we're using gas as our transition fuel, which is less polluting. So those are areas that all of us should join hands to work together to ensure that
it behoves us, as individuals, as people who are working in the sector, as people who understand and all that, to tell the government, to guide government action, to be able to direct government action, influence government policies.
The report seeks justice in transition. It commended the federal government's compressed natural gas initiative, saying it will aid the switch. Now let's take a quick look at the weather prospect for tomorrow, Thursday. And that ends the news at this time on NTA International. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Elizabeth Omori, and our sign language interpreter is Shegun Ajayi.